Welcome to Veterans Health Watch. Compared to the general public, the incidence of suicide is higher among veterans, so it's best to be prepared to help someone before they hurt themselves. We prepare for other emergencies, so how can we prepare for this? Jonathan, help us to understand, is there anything we can do to help someone in crisis?
Yes, there are things we can do. It's best to start, though, by being non-judgmental and to listen.
And we mentioned that the incidence of suicide is higher among veterans. What are the numbers like, Nicole?
Well, what I like to tell people, first of all, is that suicide is a national crisis and that 45,000 people each year die by suicide. But what's significant for our veterans is that 20 veterans each day die as a result of suicide. And so it's really important that we prepare to save our veterans' lives, our heroes, really knowing what to look for and how we can be with them and help them seek help is important.
And you said being with them and help them seek help. Seeking help is a challenge. And John, as a veteran who works with veterans, how does the military culture impact how a veteran actually seeks help?
Well, actually, there are a number of ways, and it's interesting to understand because there is an actual culture, a military/veteran culture, and the things that you're taught in training and through your time in the military generally don't lend you to being willing to go get help or ask for help for oneself. Another thing to be aware of as well is that a lot of us were taught, that you don't want to be that weak link. You don't want to be seen as weak. You want people to be able to rely on you. You don't want to be the person that has to be relied on. So it's, again, asking for help is sort of an uphill battle. It's, I don't need help. Surely I don't need help. I was taught to be self-reliant. I was taught to take care of myself and not be a drain on the unit or the mission.
And if our veterans are struggling with these things and not come in to seek help, then it's really important for the families to be prepared and notice those warning signs. What are some of those warning signs?
Well, sometimes, going back, looking at the risk factors is another important issue. Knowing what are the things that are on board that make someone prone to suicide, like mental health diagnosis, a substance abuse issue, maybe they have a physical illness that may be elevating their depression or anxiety, making them feel like they want to take control of their life if they're facing a fatal condition. Other risk factors might be that they have a family history of suicide, maybe a loved one died by suicide. Even someone that has a past suicide attempt is more at risk. And so we really want our families to know those risk factors, but also the warning signs. And those are the things that, beyond those that are on board that make us prone, the warning signs are those things we see that we don't really. Sometimes family is hard for them to admit that their loved one is in danger. And it's important that they, acknowledge those risk factors, like someone may be talking about death or, may have asked for access to a weapon or things like that. Those are some of the warning signs. What are some of the other ones you can think of?
The others, they would, saying things simple as, like, when I woke up this morning, I kind of wish I hadn't woken up. Another thing you mentioned, physical pain, chronic pain. A lot of veterans have chronic pain because of the demands that were put on their bodies while they were in the service. And what's also difficult about that is at one point in their lives, they were very functional, highly functional individuals. And again, one of the things in the military training is, excellence. And now you find yourself physically unable to do certain things. You feel burdensome. And it's really important for family members to understand that, and loved ones to understand that that's sort of part of what we go through, what veterans go through, when you are not performing at your best or not feeling your best. And it's not your fault, but it feels like it's something you need to keep to yourself.
So as a veteran, then how could a family member or a loved one approach this subject if they've seen some of the warning signs or the risk factors? And it sounds scary, but it's so important. How can they open up that dialogue? Should they ask the person if they're going to commit suicide?
Yes, absolutely. And we talk about this a lot because it's a hard question to ask. But directly asking, if the individual is already thinking about it, they are going to probably feel some relief that you understand. And that goes back to what we said in the beginning, this understanding and being non-judgmental.
Yeah, and people don't realize that that's a myth. People think that if you ask someone about suicide, you're putting that idea in their head. And what we've heard from our veterans is that we're recognizing something that they've never shared with someone. And it feels a little bit of relief for them to say, someone's noticing that, and maybe I can ask that person for some help.
And that is a surprise to hear. I can understand it now, but people will be surprised to say, okay, that there's some relief. So let's talk about how family members or loved ones can be prepared to help that veteran? What are some steps they should take? They've noticed the warning signs or risk factors. What are steps they can take?
So the other thing I would say, and I think John touched on it, don't be judgmental. A lot of times stigma in the society about suicide makes us feel uncomfortable asking those questions and even judging people who are feeling suicidal. There's this thought that suicide is selfish, and really what we want people to know is that it's not that person isn't feeling selfish. They're feeling like they're burdened and they want to relieve that burden from their family. And so the main thing we want family to know is that they want not to be judgmental about what that person is feeling, their loved one is feeling. And they may not understand it. They may not understand the reason why they want to die by suicide, but it's important that they at least be with them in that moment and let them talk about that, because it may not be something they understand, but it's really true to how that person feels, and it's the next step to helping them really get the help they need.
And along that line, a lot of times, and I know this myself from when I was younger, how could you possibly understand what I've been through? The answer to that really is, I can't, but I hope I can help you. I think I can help you. You know, don't try to identify if you really can't. Tell the truth about how you're feeling when the individual is confessing these things or talking about these things.
And I know that the VA, or there's a crisis line, yes, a national crisis line, and most of us have cell phones now. What about that crisis line and how that can help?
I encourage the veterans to put the number to the crisis line in their cell phones, so that if they find themselves in crisis, or if they find a peer, another veteran in crisis, anyone in crisis, they'll have that number. And so we've really been extending that education to families so that they will know the resources available and they have access to it. The Veterans Crisis Line is an amazing resource. They can talk with someone through that crisis. They can actually provide emergency assistance if they're imminently at risk. So it's a great resource. We have magnets so that veterans can put the number on their refrigerator, but we certainly want families to have that number as well.
It's sort of like the Mr. Yuck stickers. We have stickers as well. You know, hope you don't need it, but if you do, there it is.
And putting it in your phone. Right. Who remembers a number now? And we're all so mobile. Putting that number in your phone is such a smart technique. And when we talk about it being understanding or not understanding, sometimes people feel, I've heard people say, once a person determines in their mind they're going to commit suicide, there's nothing you can do. What do you say about that, Nicole? What is your experience?
Suicide is preventable. I mean, once you know the information, the facts, the risk factors, the warning signs, now it's time to take action. And we can prevent suicides. One of the things we do here, actually we do it across the nation at all VAs, but here in the VAMX, the VA Maryland healthcare system, we actually give out free gun locks, which actually can secure weapons. So a lot of people feel comfortable having weapons in their home for protection, and we tell our veterans all the time, it's your decision if you want to own a weapon, but we really educate them about safe storage, because weapons in the home, access to those weapons really does increase the risk for suicide.
And also to your question, in another way too, is a lot of folks I've talked to say, when you get to talking to them, they'll say, I don't want to die, but I don't know how to keep living. Yeah. And that's the part we can help with.
And every minute counts, right? When you have that gun lock, that the time it takes to unlock the gun, get the ammunition, that every second counts.
The research shows that limiting access to lethal means really does reduce suicide, because that suicide risk is time sensitive. So in that moment that I'm thinking about suicide, you know, if I don't have access to lethal means, most likely that risk will diminish with supports, and then I can move on to feeling better and doing better.
So we want to leave our veterans and their family members, their loved ones, with some tips, some takeaway tips. Nicole, give us some tips that people can use to help be prepared or help their loved ones.
Well, I would say be involved in their treatment. You know, when things are going well, talk about being a part of their treatment team. Maybe even signing a release of information with their providers. And the VA welcomes that. We want our veterans' families to be involved because they have information that's helpful to their treatment. That's always important, because then you have, you're part of that treatment team. That doctor can reach out to you, you can reach out to the doctor about your loved one if things start to go downhill. It's really an important benefit. What would you say, John?
Other tips, just like you were talking about lethal means, a lot of times it's easy. Veterans will get their medications mailed to them and they'll accidentally stockpile It's good to get rid of those. All the pharmacies, at least the VAs now, have drop boxes, so you don't have an overabundance of medications in the house. That's one way to do it. We talked about the gun locks, maybe taking the key to the gun lock and freezing it in a paper cup in the freezer, just that much longer to get it out, right?
Even with pills, having a pill box.
Right, exactly.
And putting the pills for the 1 week in the pill box, and then having a family member store the others safely. That only allows the veteran to have access to a small number of pills, which will reduce the risk of an overdose on medication.
And know your veteran. You know, the veteran is not interested in guns and then one day decides, I think I'm going to go buy a handgun. Pay attention. Maybe there's something going on there. You know, ask those questions.
Don't ignore those gut feelings.
Those things, exactly.
Yeah. Well, thank you both so much for being here with us today. Thank you for what you do for our veterans. Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
And we want to remember you can help. There's something we could do to help.
Things that can be done, yes.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much, Kenny.
We all have the ability to touch the lives of those around us. Sometimes, even the smallest act has the power to change a life. Hello.
Hi, Dad.
Reach out to the veterans in your life today. Let them know they're not alone. That's the power of one. One simple act can make all the difference.
I'm a proud U.S. Navy disabled PTSD, military sexual trauma survivor. I'm just glad that I didn't take my life. I'm glad that I know my purpose. The guilt and the shame is gone. I'm glad that I can stand tall and talk about it in adversity. I was in during the Vietnam era. I was on a new ship, LST, tank landing ship. We carried Marines and supplies and things like that. I made the fatal mistake of walking the other way through the middle of the ship. And when I was walking, they accosted me. And he began to rape me. So I hid it. It didn't happen. I was walking and one passed by me. He said, if you ever say anything about what happened, we'll throw your black ass overboard. So it was fear. I couldn't sleep. I started having nightmares. I went home. I burned everything. I burned the shoes, the hats, the peacoat, the clothes. I burned everything. I would work hard during the day and I would hide the drinking and drugging. And it just caught up with me. I started losing jobs. The depression would get me sometime after the nightmares. And I couldn't go out of the house. I had a nightmare and I got drunk for a week and they fired me. And had I had the guts to kill myself then, I would have done it. But I had the courage to dial 1-800-273-8255. That's the crisis hotline. And they coached me for about 45 minutes and they took me to the psych ward at John Dingle, and I started with group therapy, one-on-one, unipsych therapy. It was much needed therapy that I am so eternally grateful that I'm a veteran. I see my psychiatrist every 2 months. I take a medication for the anxiety and the depression every day. And I always say they gave me a toolbox. They have a toolbox of life for us. Those tools are in there that allow us to start repairing our lives I love living today. And these tears aren't painful anymore. I thank God every day. I thank Him all day long. I hang my flag out on my home every day. It flies high. I wear my flag. I'm a proud U.S. Navy disabled PTSD, military sexual trauma survivor. I'm not a victim anymore.
June 6th was a big day for the VA. It was the beginning of a new law called the Mission Act, which is all about increasing access to health care for veterans. And here to help explain it is Dr. Vishal Vagela. Dr. Vagela, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So first, let's explain the Mission Act. What is it?
So the Mission Act was actually passed into law by our president in June of 2018, and it actually took effect starting June 6, 2019. And the Mission Act is actually a law that allows the VA to give more access to care for our veterans. And the biggest change that you're going to see is from the community care side.
And so do veterans need to do anything to be eligible for these services through the Mission Act?
So Kenya, that's a great question. So what our veterans need to do to find out if they're eligible for the Mission Act, so number one is they have to be enrolled in VA healthcare, and number two, really they should talk to their primary care doctor to see if they qualify for services under the Mission Act.
Okay, I saw a video recently where you broke this down into
Yeah.
3 elements
Yep.
to help our veterans understand it. So explain those 3 elements to us.
So the 3 elements, it's easy to think of them as access, eligibility, and then there's a new urgent care benefit. So in terms of our access, the new access standards that have been put forth by the Mission Act, if a veteran has to wait greater than 20 days for a mental health or primary care appointment, or greater than 28 days for a specialty care appointment, this could be like cardiology or a surgery appointment, then they would qualify for the Mission Act. Or if their drive time is greater than 30 minutes, or for primary care and mental health, or greater than 60 minutes for specialty care, they would also qualify for the Mission Act.
And that drive time that you talk about, how's that calculated?
So the drive time was calculated using geo-mapping software by the VA, so those drive times have been predetermined. And so when you discuss this with your primary care provider, they'll be able to see the drive time in your record to see if you qualify based on drive time.
And urgent care, you mentioned that element?
Sure, so the urgent care benefit is actually a new benefit here for our veterans. And the urgent care benefit is really for, let's say if you have a minor injury or a minor illness such as a cold, or if you decide that you want to get your flu shot and you don't want to drive all the way over to the VA. That's really what urgent care should be used for. There could be a small copay associated with it. It's about $30. And the eligibility is really determined based on the priority group of service connection for the veteran. And so for more information on that, again, you should contact your primary care provider. But there's also a website called www.missionact.va.gov where veterans can actually go to find out more information. It's a really cool website. I've seen it myself. It tells you how to enroll into VA healthcare, and you can see if you're eligible, how you're eligible, and it's even got a map on there where you can actually see what community care facilities are enrolled with the VA.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. How can veterans learn about this? But the bottom line is work with your provider.
Yep.
So our veterans don't have to be concerned that they need to do anything any differently. Work with the provider to determine eligibility. Okay.
No, absolutely. They should always talk to the VA, and except for urgent care, all of the care that goes through the Mission Act does have to be authorized by the VA first. And so they should always check in with their primary care provider or call the VA to see if they qualify. And also to confirm that the community provider they're going to is an in-network provider.
And the veterans can still choose to use the VA, even
Absolutely.
with this option. How does that work?
Absolutely. So the choice is always up to the veterans, and we always want and hope that our veterans choose the VA. And so again, this is a discussion that the veteran will have with their primary care provider or the clinic they're calling into. The veteran always has the option to stay with the VA. They have to opt in to go to community care, and so we always welcome veterans to stay with us at the VA.
Great. Well, thank you so much for being with us today and helping to explain this and demystify the Mission Act a little bit for us.
Sure, thanks. I had a great time.
My name is Yashmeen. I served in the United States Navy 2005 to 2011. I came in as a aviation bosun's mate. We were doing workups to get the ship to go out on deployment. One of my friends was on the flight deck and he got his head taken off by a FA-18. It's unbelievable to see one of your friends just lying there. It's just so much commotion, there's so much emotions was going on. It's a horrible feeling. But you know you can't really harbor on it too much. You know you have to go out there and still do your job. Not having that time to grieve and actually get in touch with your feelings is kind of hard because you hold it all in. And then it's like, at some point, all that emotion and stuff just like builds up in you and erupts and it just comes out. And it don't come out sometimes the right way, and it just tears you to pieces sometimes. I didn't smile, I didn't laugh, I didn't show no emotion. I was just like numb, just didn't care. I didn't trust nobody. I was secluded, like I would literally be in a dark space, this darkness. I didn't want no light around me. I just felt like I was hopeless. Then I'm dealing with the kids. I don't have too much to really take care of them. I had to send my kids up to New York because I didn't want them suffering with me. That's when I just sat there and I was just thinking about everything, and it just came so much for me that I tried to, hurt myself. So I knew I had to, take that step forward to make a change. I was told about the VA. I was talking to two psychs that were very awesome, that kind of like brought me out of my shell. The incident that I saw, we actually kind of relived it to a point where I can actually talk about it without getting so emotional, and to ask me, to let me know that it wasn't my fault, that, things happen and that it's all right to grieve. My son, he's been with me through the process. He was 3 when I went into the service. So he knew the difference between fun, upbeat mommy to, Dad, she don't like to talk, she just looks mean, and she just look cranky all day. So now it's back to, oh, Ma, we're hugs and kisses and stuff. We're back to that. They started, helping me think about, not for nothing, go to school. So I was like, you know what? Why not? I like learning, so I just started applying for school. And I've been in school, I'm about to graduate soon. That kind of helped, just being around different people, and not to mention there's a lot of veterans in my school. That's where I really hang out with, the veterans. And just hearing their stories, just hearing what they went through, just hearing that they trying to go to school just to, get their minds off of things is a great thing, great experience. What they say, a closed mouth don't get fed. You have to say something because nobody truly knows what's going on with you but you. And if you don't let them into your world, they can't help you. So sometimes you gotta, I guess, you be that vulnerable person and actually let somebody help you.
No one likes to be in the hospital, so we're here to make your stay very comfortable and ordering your meals. When the patient is admitted to the hospital, he or she receives a menu according to their diet through the VA Gourmet menu. An ambassador like me will also go in the room and explain to the patient and their family members how the system works. It'll explain to them how to call for their meals from 6:30 a.m. until 7 p.m. The call center also can see if the patient have any restrictions or any other allergies to any food, so we know how to adjust the meal. Once the order is placed, the ticket will print at 2 different stations. The cook will receive the hot ticket, and the expediter will receive all the cold items.
This patient has called down and ordered salmon, macaroni and cheese, and green beans. So as you see, again, everything is made fresh. But the salmon is just prepared as they call down and order it, and this tray is ready to leave the kitchen.
The expediter is the last person to see the tray. Their job is to ensure that the tray is correct.
I do a final check of the ticket to see if they have each and every single item that the patient has ordered on the ticket.
And then it will go upstairs to the patient.
My name is Tim. I served in the United States Air Force from 1985 till 1990, and then I served in the United States Marine Corps from 1990 to 1997. Even though it's kind of a little chilly out here today, it's beautiful just being out here and being with my son and spending time with him. It's a wonderful stress reliever. Just anything you can do to get your mind off things really does help. I would have to say from a very early age, I was a pretty tough little kid, and I knew once I graduated high school that I wanted to do something different than everybody else. I didn't want to hang around the hometown. I wanted to get out and travel and see different places. So I decided I wanted to go in the military. I internalized a lot of things throughout my life and throughout my military career that I didn't even realize at the time that I was doing. It didn't come out till years later with my wife and her telling me that I had something wrong, that there was something wrong and I needed to talk to somebody about it. And I kind of dismissed it. I'm like, oh, you're crazy. There's nothing wrong with me. You know, I'm a tough guy. I'm a Marine. I know what I'm doing. And she's like, no, there's something wrong. You need to talk to somebody. You should talk to a therapist. And as soon as she said that buzzword therapist, I thought in my mind, I'm like, you're the crazy one. I don't need a therapist. Yeah, it took me a while to get there. And I didn't realize there's a lot of damage I was doing to the people, even the people that I loved around me. Not physically, but mentally through what I was going through. I'd reached a real low point in my life. I was actually homeless for about a year. I decided in my mind that I wanted to commit suicide at one point. I remember being on the subway, on the metro, and there was a little sign, a little ad on the wall in the subway, on the metro that said, even heroes can ask for help. I just put my head down and I started crying. I'm thinking, you know, what that was about, what that sign was about, and I'm thinking about what I'd done wrong in my life because before this, I was so successful. I called the number and there was a guy on the other line and he goes, you really need to get some help. Do you want me to send help for you? And I just started crying. I said, yes. So there's a program, the guy running it was an Army veteran, and he said, you know what, come on in. I'll get you the help that you need. You really need some help, and I think I can help you. I said, okay. At first, you know, I got there, and I'm thinking, you know, the typical tough guy thing, oh, this therapy, it ain't gonna do nothing for me. And as time went on, and I went through each day, and I started realizing how much that therapy helped. Even my son has noticed such a difference in me, the way I used to be and the way I am now. I just started becoming involved in the community, which I never did before. And I started talking to different veterans and different friends that I had and making them aware of all these services and things that are out there to help them. The best thing we can do is to help another fellow veteran. And the best way to do that is just to reach out to them. The VA is a great place to reach out for help. They have a lot of mental health professionals. They have a lot of people there waiting and trained to help you out. You need to be there for your family, for your loved ones.
This wraps up this edition of Veterans Health Watch. If you are a veteran, apply for VA healthcare today. You deserve it. Just visit our webpage for more information. You can find more episodes of Veterans Health Watch on our YouTube channel. Just type in VA Maryland Healthcare System in the search bar. And be sure to hit the subscribe button to get notifications of new videos. Don't worry, it's free. We'll see you on the next Veterans Health Watch.